Hi class, and welcome to this video, which is part of Unit 3 Outcome 2 of Business Management. So we're looking at human resource management or managing employees. And this video is going to focus on the important principle of motivation. And we're going to look at theories. We're going to look specifically at 3 theories of motivation. What do I hope that you get out of this video? I hope that you understand the key principles of the following motivational theories. Hierarchy of needs, which is Maslow, the goal setting theory, which is Locke and Latham, and the 4 drive theory, which is Lawrence and Noria. Before we go into these 3 theories, what do we mean by employee motivation and why is it so important? Let's look at our definition first, and we're going to look at 2 important terms which are bolded. Employee motivation refers to the internal and external processes that direct, energize, and sustain a person's behavior and effort to achieve a goal. Now, we know from our previous video in Key Knowledge 2.1, we want our employees to have objectives that align to our business objectives and to continue to strive to achieve them. Now, that's not as simple as it sounds, because not everyone is going to have the internal, which is intrinsic desire to do it, or the external processes, extrinsic process, that are going to ensure that they have motivation, that they are striving to achieve that goal. So that means businesses and HR are going to have to put in processes and policies to ensure that they have motivated employees. And historically, they've relied on the use of rewards and punishment. We will pay those that are working towards their goal and maybe reward and punish those that aren't. But we are learning over the last 70 years, and some of these theories are relatively new, how much more complex motivation is. Before we go through them though, I want you to really understand that motivation is crucial to ensuring business success. We are going to have employees and we are going to have business objectives. And we are going to very much hope that these are aligned. But to achieve that business objective, we're going to need to ensure that a business and that the employee is motivated. And we'll learn later that they have the skills and knowledge. And that is going to come down to training, which is a future video in this outcome. But only if we can tick off motivation and skills and knowledge, we will be able to ultimately be able to tick off the employee objectives, which will ultimately mean we achieve our business objectives. So that's why motivation is so important. What are our 3 theories? This could be a relatively long video. We're going to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the goal setting theory of Locke and Latham, and the 4 drive theory of Lawrence and Noria. So it might make sense for you to watch this video in 3 parts to truly understand these theories. You're going to need to know for all of them, and we're going to go through this in this video, the characteristics. So essentially, what is the theory? The advantages and disadvantages. And this is going to be really important for for answering questions with task words like discuss and evaluate. And we're not going to go through this, but I do want you to think about it. You're going to have to think about similarities and differences, because you might be asked to distinguish between these theories or compare between these theories. So our first theory is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'm going to circle hierarchy because that is really important. This theory recognizes that people have a range of needs, which are organized in a hierarchy of importance. So even though these ones at the bottom are at the bottom, these are our most important. Or you might think of it as another way, these are our most basic needs. Self-actualization, which is our highest one here is actually our most complex. I'm not going to say it's our least important, but it is our most complex and will only be achieved after the others. So firstly, we're going to think about the physiological, the psychological and physical needs. And these in a business will include things like a basic wage. You need to earn a basic wage to meet your physical needs, because you need to be able to use your wage to buy food and shelter and all the things that we need. Secondly, if we are achieving that, we're going to have the need of safety and security, which will be met in a business by effective OH&S for safety, so occupation health and safety, and security more means permanence and ensuring that you're confident you continue to have a job, and that's going to come down to an employment contract. Now, if we achieve those things, we've started to leave the real basic needs, but very important ones, and then an employee or her person might start to look for the satisfaction of their third need, which is for belonging and love. They want to feel part of something and to feel like they have camaraderie and they are part of, they are getting, as humans are social beings, that from work. And this will include making sure that we will need to ensure our employees are fitting in and socializing with co-workers. If that occurs, then we start to go into our more intrinsic motivation, and we start to look at self-esteem. So are we getting the most promoted? Are we getting recognized? Are we getting training? And if we achieve that, we move up to our most complex, which is called self-actualization, which is all about actually we are getting enjoyment from the process of our work. We are becoming the best person we are because all of our needs are being met. And then hence we start to think about achievement and career advancement. So it's a relatively complicated theory. What do I want us to understand? The bottom three are real external. We get these are needs that are provided from external. For example, we need to have a basic wage to meet our external needs. As we move up this pyramid, and I do want you to think about this as a pyramid, we move into more internal or intrinsic needs. Why do I think of it as a pyramid? When we'll learn about this more. Because there's many more people at the bottom than the people who end up at the top. Why is that? Is because it is a hierarchy of need. And you can pause this and have another read. You can only move on to the next level if the previous level has been met. So you're not necessarily going to be worried about the safety of your work until you are ensured that you are able to meet your physical needs. If you aren't meet your physical needs, people will logically do any job, even if it is dangerous. And you will only start to look at the social needs if you're feeling like your physical needs are being met, which is level 1, and you're got safety and security. So that's why it works as a triangle. We have more people at the bottom than the top. And you can have a pause of this video to have a look at this slide a bit more. So what are the characteristics? And I'm going to add a few more. There are 5 needs, which are considered the same for everyone. These needs are arranged in a hierarchy of importance. And that's important because none of the others are arranged in a hierarchy. So this is a key difference of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Lower order needs are extrinsic. So the bottom of the pyramid is intrinsic or external. And these must be satisfied before an employer can move to the higher order needs, which are intrinsic. Importantly, it's a hierarchy because one need must be satisfied before the next level can become important. And the key bit here is how are you motivated? It is because a need is unsatisfied. This motivates and drives an employee, influencing their behavior. So if we think about it as our steps, and we'll do 5 steps, if the first 2 are being met but our belonging and love has not been met, it is this level that is going to be motivating. We are going to strive to achieve that. And a good business will recognize this and provide what we are needing, so we will then move into the next one and become better and more effective employees. Because we want to recognize that the most effective employees are the ones at the top of the pyramid. So what are the advantages of this? And what are the disadvantages? Remember, this is great for discussion questions, great for evaluation questions. This is a relatively simple theory, and it provides a summary of human needs which can be used to identify areas where people can be motivated. So it allows a business to identify things. It accounts for the logical aspect that motivation is both intrinsic and extrinsic, and hence it accounts for different personalities. And it's useful because it can be used to identify specific HR strategies. So example, if an employee is lacking the self-esteem, but they are at that point of the hierarchy, HR can identify specific strategies. What are the disadvantages though? It assumes all the employees are the same. However, we know that people are different, and hence the needs might not be the same or as important. It assumes that needs cannot coexist, which seems counterintuitive. And it assumes that lower order needs become irrelevant when they're met, and that's not really true. So there are a lot of advantages and disadvantages. I encourage you to pause this video and to digest this and make your notes. And I also encourage you to think about it practically. And here is a great slide to pause and think about which level of Maslow is not being met here. And hence that is the level that will be driving employee motivation or lack of motivation. And it will be that level that a business needs to support and provide. And now we move to our next theory. So I do, as I mentioned before, encourage you to have a pause. We're now going to look at Locke and Latham's goal setting theory. Now this is, I think, a relatively straightforward one. You've probably heard in school all the importance of goals throughout. This was created by Dr. Edwin Locke, who developed a theory of motivation based on research. He then combined with another researcher called Latham to come up with this specific theory. According to Locke's theory, he concluded that employees will be motivated if they have clear goals and appropriate feedback. Now that should feel pretty logical, but these are two really important words. We motivate by goals and feedback. So even though it is called the goal setting theory, you must always talk about feedback as well. Now, why is this an interesting theory? Why, even though this seems like common sense, is Locke went further. He, through research, outlined what effective goals are and how feedback should occur. And these are the specific terms that has driven this theory and the terms you need to include in your responses. So when we talk about effective goals, we recognize that goals must be clear, specific, challenging but not overwhelming, so challenging but not impossible, and developed collaboratively between the employee and the manager. So you're seeing a lot of C words there, and that's important to remember. There's another way you could remember specific, and I consider it to be concise. So you can almost say it is clear, concise, challenging, and collaboratively made. So lots of C words. Feedback is an important part, and we recognize that feedback should be ongoing. So it shouldn't just be one-off, it should always occur and should be constructive, so as to give the employee a sense of accomplishment. So I want you to think about this theory as we motivate by having goals, and then feedback occurs. Feedback occurs. And then, because this is ongoing and constructive, goals should be adapted. And then this is why we motivate, because it keeps going as a loop to ensure employee performance and motivation improves and occurs. So how can we almost summarize it? We need to have goals. Goals and feedback equal motivation. And motivation, especially if we have the knowledge and skills, equals performance. And we know that the feedback must be ongoing, so we always have new goals. And this is where Dr. Latham came in. He experimented with LOC and supported this. And in 1990, this theory of goal setting was created. And they established the 5 principles of goal setting together. What are these 5? We've talked about these already. Really, goals should be have clarity, so they should be clear. They should be challenging but not overwhelming, so not impossible. They should involve commitment, so they should involve a collaborative approach. They should have task complexity, which we'll talk about in a second. And most importantly, so we're going to put this one with a few arrows, there must always be ongoing constructive feedback. I encourage you to read this, which goes through these in a little bit more detail. It explains when we're talking about clarity, they should be clear and measurable. When we talk about challenge, they should ensure that there is going to be a valuable contribution. We shouldn't be too overwhelming. When we talk about commitment, they must commit to the goals and they should be collaboratively made. And task complexity is all about they should have clear deadlines and should not be so overwhelming. So we can talk about them using different words, but hopefully you've got your 5 principles. So what are our characteristics? There is 2 factors, goals and feedback that influence motivation and performance. You might notice they're not in a hierarchy. Goals are an intrinsic motivator. It's happening internally. Even though it might have been made with someone else, it's an intrinsic internal motivator. And it should be clear, specific, and challenging and developed collaboratively. Feedback we might consider to be an extrinsic motivator. It's coming from someone else. And it should focus on this goal achievement and recognize effort so we get that loop going. As we mentioned, there is no established hierarchy. It is more a combination of goals and feedback, which equals motivation and performance. So as we mentioned, a good way to remember it is goals plus feedback equals motivation, and motivation equals performance. And we have 5 words that we can really remember to think about for goals. What are the advantages of this? There are many. The employees, if goal setting is occurred and with feedback, are given a clear sense of direction. You're going to be motivated because you have clarity. It recognizes that by doing this, that employees might actually develop new skills and abilities, which is going to be great for motivation and performance. It's going to be important and good because managers will have a clear way of measuring performance. If we give employees goals, then we can also measure their performance against those goals. And that's great for performance, which is one of our key knowledge points in the future. We know that research says that employees will be more invested if they have ownership of their goals. And we can really make sure that these goals align with our business objectives, which we know is crucial. This feedback can also give a sense of accomplishment if it is positive feedback. So what are the disadvantages? And it's a bit of a go-to one if a theory sounds great. This is an effective theory most of the time, but it can be very time-consuming to develop and negotiate. Because remember, you're coming up with goals with every employee and they need to be involved in it. The feedback can also be time-consuming and it can also be difficult, especially if it's going to be negative feedback. And some managers just aren't very good at it. And sometimes it can be really difficult for specific employees in specific parts of a business to align their goals with business objectives. An example off the top of my head is someone in a technology part of a business who might be involved with making sure some aspect of technology or software is running. That might be difficult to align with a specific objective. And we also know while feedback can drive motivation if they're given a sense of accomplishment, don't think that all feedback is going to be positive. And some people will take this as criticism, and that might actually lead to reduced motivation. So guys, that is where we've stopped for goal setting and Lock and Latham. I encourage you to pause. This is a long video. It'll be the longest of outcome 2. And now we move to our final theory, Lawrence and Norrie's 4 drive theory. And I call this the A, B, C, D theory. Dr. Paul Lawrence and Dr. Nitin Noria developed this 4 drive theory in 2002, so it's very recent, and in an attempt to identify the basic drives that determine behavior. So the basic drives that motivate. And then they attempted to bring that into the workforce. Now, according to Lawrence and Noria, they say there are 4 key drives. The drive to A, acquire, B, bond, C, comprehend. You might also see this as learn, but I like that it becomes A, B, C, and the drive D, to defend. And if we have those, and we'll see that you see that they are separate, everyone has them. If we are meeting these drives or try to help one be met, we hopefully will have motivation. So what are these drives? The first drive is the A, to acquire. And this is, if we are acquiring, we are getting something. So that we are driven and get motivation because we have a desire to get some stuff. This can be material goods, but it also can be things like status, power, and influence. We are looking to acquire because we believe we are achieving, and we will work hard to achieve these things. Now, employees and managers can make sure that they satisfy this need, so to continue motivation, by ensuring remuneration is strong, that they recognize good performance too, so status and power and influence is acquired, and making sure that high levels of performances are an expectation. And you can read this in a little bit more detail. Now, the drive to bond, which we're going to do next, is different. But I want us to think of the bond to acquire is the bond to achieve. And you might think of this as a bit more of an extrinsic one because they are looking externally for this. The drive to bond is different. The drive to bond includes that we are social beings. We have a desire to bond to other human beings. We have a desire to form positive relationships with others. And these could be individuals and groups to get a sense of belonging. So we are going to be motivated if we are feeling like this, we are getting positive relationships. And employees and managers can satisfy this bond to ensure motivation and happiness and performance by interacting with their employees in an encouraging way and caring about them on a personal level. By recognizing achievements as a team and encouraging teamwork and a collaborative culture. This is about making sure that people maybe are recognized, and we stop to recognize birthdays as easy as simple as it sounds. And encouraging trusting relationships between employees. So we start to develop an environment where friendships occur. People want to come to work, not just because they enjoy the work and because they're paid, because they actually like the people and the relationships that they have. So we want to think of this bond and this drive of bond to be belong. The next one is the drive to comprehend. And if we think of comprehend, we also want to think of the word learn. There is a drive in many of us to satisfy our curiosity. We want to learn new things and learn new skills. We want to explore the world around us. And if we feel like we are getting that in our job, we will be motivated. I'm come to work and I've learned something today. That is motivating. I will keep coming to work and I'll strive hard. So how can employees and managers satisfy this? They can provide training to give people the opportunities to gain new skills and qualifications. They can make sure that the tasks and roles are as varied and interesting as possible, so the day-to-day work is varied and interesting, and making sure that their duties are valued. So we want to think of this drive as comprehend is to learn. Now the last one is one that I want you to I'm almost going to give you a bit of a warning. It is the most complicated one to talk about. And I honestly discourage people talking about this drive unless they feel they need to. Why is it a bit more complicated? Because while when we read it, it will make sense, hopefully, it has a few little asterisks or special rules about it. Now, the drive to defend recognizes that we have a desire to feel safe and to have a level of trust between employees. That seems relatively obvious. Now, this drive kicks in if we feel like we are faced with a threat. If we are faced with a threat, we will be motivated if we feel like someone is helping us become safe or get trust back. So a business owner can maybe get their trust back or make an employee feel safe, which will make them ultimately feel motivated again if they give OH&S training or do something to make a workforce safe. Or if they start to establish a welcoming and supportive trusting culture. And they need clear systems and processes to make sure things are fair when rewarding and recognizing employees. So the key bit here is there is a drive to defend where we have a desire to feel safe and feel trust. But this drive only kicks in when there is a threat. So you need to talk about this red bit to be accurate. Now, ironically, I find this one a little bit difficult to understand or agree with myself because often it is the business that makes you feel unsafe at work or have created a culture of lack of trust. So for somehow them to say you will be motivated when they fix it, to me seems a little counterintuitive. What are the characteristics though? There are 4 drives: the acquire, bond, comprehend, and defend. I want us to think of the the drive to acquire and comprehend are intrinsic, as they are focused internally on your own achievement or your own advancement in skills or knowledge. While the drives of bond and defend are considered extrinsic because they are focused on belonging, so other people, and feeling safe, which is controlled by others. Now, importantly, there is no established hierarchy, as these drives always exist and are active. And there are advantages and disadvantages. Advantages being it's a more contemporary theory, it's more modern, hence it's more relevant, people would say, to the up-to-date workforces. It's relatively simple and easy to understand. And it does provide management with a clear guidance around, or gives them a clear idea of why motivation might be lacking, because they can start to think which drive is not being met. Now, what is the disadvantages? It assumes that everyone is the same and doesn't account for the relative strength of each individual. Logically, some people are going to be more driven by acquire because they want to be paid a lot to get a fancy car. And some people will pick jobs and love their job and be motivated in jobs which will never be high paying. It also assumes that the drive to defend is inactive, which may not be true for others. And it might potentially oversimplify motivation. It doesn't take into account this difference in people. Now that is a massive video, and I've hoped that you haven't done it in one sitting. I hope that you have left understanding the principles of these 3 motivational theories: hierarchy of needs, goal setting theory, and 4 drive theory. You've understood the characteristics, advantages and disadvantages, and now you can reflect and go, what are the similarities and differences? And maybe even apply which one to start to think, when would which theory be most effective in business? Because they're the type of questions you will get, discuss, compare, distinguish, and those sorts of ones. For now, I hope that you found this video useful and keep studying business management.